What if I told you that the greatest weapon used to destroy families, weaken rulers, and extinguish potential has never been a sword, a war, or an enemy, but a cup? What if I told you that the most effective way to dismantle a man's wealth is not to defeat him in battle, but to hand him a drink and let him defeat himself? They call it celebration, they call it escape, they call it fun. But the truth, my friend, is that the world has merely disguised decay as pleasure. A man who drinks poisons his mind long before the bottle touches his lips, because the first sip begins not with alcohol, but with the illusion that he needs it. And what follows is far worse than a single act of destruction. It is suicide on the installment plan, a slow surrender paid for day by day until the debt finally comes due when he least expects it. And by then, the man who once held power has already been conquered, not by another, but by himself. Alcohol is not a drink. It is an instrument of control. Throughout history, it has served as the silent executioner of greatness. The Romans gave their enemies wine before negotiation. The Persians trusted decisions only when they were sober, for they understood that a drunk man's confidence is counterfeit. A mind clouded cannot scheme, cannot anticipate, cannot rule. And yet today, men drink not in defeat, but in celebration. They celebrate weakness as leisure. They toast to their own decline. I have seen emperors turn into jesters because they mistook numbness for peace. The cup dulls the instinct that warns you of danger, the edge that keeps your mind sharp, the calculation that keeps your enemies beneath you. Alcohol does not relax you. It relieves you of the very tension that makes you alert and dangerous. The seduction of alcohol lies in its false promise that it will silence the noise inside your mind. But the wise understand that noise is the signal of an active conscience, a restless spirit, a man still alive to his purpose. When you drink, you mute that signal. You tell your mind to sleep while your enemies stay awake. You train your body to love weakness disguised as relief. And the moment you find comfort in that relief, you lose your throne. The ruler who drinks to forget his burden will soon wake up to find his burden has grown teeth. The man who drinks to silence his thoughts forgets that those thoughts are the architects of his empire. He returns to his senses not refreshed but robbed of time, clarity, and will. In the morning, he will not remember the laughter of the night. He will only remember that he was once in control and is no longer. Do you know why tyrants tolerate taverns? Because they are cheaper than prisons. The man who drinks is already enslaved. He has no need for chains. He carries his own. The tavern is the perfect political tool. It gives the illusion of freedom while ensuring dependence. Alcohol manufactures obedience. It makes the ambitious content with mediocrity, the poor content with poverty, the conquered content with their conqueror. It replaces the fire of rebellion with the glow of intoxication. History's most cunning rulers understood this. A drunk population never revolts. The more they drink, the less they think. The less they think, the easier they are to rule. Every empire that wished to endure made sure its people had endless entertainment and endless liquor. Distract them, numb them, they will never see their own chains. A man's power depends on his capacity for restraint. Alcohol annihilates restraint. It whispers lies in the tone of freedom. Be yourself, it says, as it dismantles your self-command. You believe you are more honest when you drink. In truth, you are more exposed. Your secrets slip out between slurred words. Your ambitions are revealed to those who would use them against you. Your dignity dissolves with your discipline. It is no coincidence that betrayal often begins over a glass. Alcohol makes you transparent, and transparency is the death of strategy. The sober man watches, the drunk man talks, and in a world ruled by silence and perception, the one who talks first always loses. Observe those who drink often. Their eyes are dull, their laughter hollow, their confidence loud but empty. They mistake recklessness for courage, forgetting that true courage is calm. The bottle gives them a counterfeit sense of control, a fleeting illusion that evaporates by morning, replaced by guilt, regret, and fatigue. Their energy declines, their ambition decays, and their purpose erodes slowly, invisibly, until they wake one day unable to recall who they were before the bottle. Alcohol promises connection but delivers isolation. It promises confidence but breeds shame. It promises warmth but leaves the soul cold. It is the devil's perfect trade, pleasure now, power later. You must understand this. Every empire begins with a sober mind. Every revolution, every invention, every masterpiece was born from clarity, not intoxication. A sharp mind cuts through the fog of deception. a dull mind becomes part of it. The man who commands himself commands the world, and the man who cannot command his impulses will forever serve another's design. When you refuse the drink, you are not denying pleasure, you are preserving power. You are protecting the one asset that cannot be replaced, your clarity. Every sip steals a fraction of it. Every night you drink, the enemy gains a day. You cannot play the game of power blindfolded, yet that is what every drunk man does. He thinks himself free while he staggers in circles, lost inside his own illusions. Alcohol is civilization's most accepted form of self-destruction. It wears the mask of culture, of celebration, of friendship. But strip away the music and the laughter, and what remains? Men trying to escape themselves. A society desperate to avoid silence because silence would reveal the emptiness beneath its pleasure. They drink because they cannot face the weight of consciousness. They fear the sober moment when they might meet their true reflection. But the strategist seeks that silence. The ruler needs that discomfort. For only in that raw, sober stillness can one see reality as it is, unfiltered, unforgiving, and true. To be sober is not to be deprived, it is to be awake in a world asleep. So remember this. The man who drinks believes he is escaping his problems, but in truth, he is watering them. Each sip grows them stronger until they tower over him. Alcohol does not erase pain, it delays it, and what is delayed multiplies. The ruler who delays confrontation invites ruin. The man who dulls his perception invites betrayal. And the world which feeds on the weak waits patiently for him to fall. The cup does not forgive, it collects debts with interest. Every drink is a loan from your future power, and one day the bill arrives. And that is the cruel genius of alcohol. It doesn't strike quickly like a sword. It corrodes slowly, like water seeping through stone. You do not notice the damage until the cracks have already spread through every part of your foundation. The drinker does not fall overnight. He decays in silence. His decline is elegant, gradual, civilized. He laughs while it happens. He posts pictures of it. He calls it relaxation, celebration, culture. But what he is truly celebrating is his own erosion, culture. But what he is truly celebrating is his own erosion. The body weakens first, then the mind, then the will. The tragedy is that by the time he sees it, he no longer has the strength to stop it. Alcohol transforms men of vision into men of excuses, kings into jesters who beg for their next illusion. It is not the drink that ruins him, it is the dependence it conceals. Dependence is the real crime. Power cannot coexist with dependence. A ruler must be bound to nothing but his purpose. Yet the drinker, in his false freedom, becomes a slave to rhythm, weekends, parties, gatherings, rituals of weakness repeated until they become identity. He does not say, "I drink." He says, "I am the kind who drinks." And so he binds his ego to his poison. A wise man detaches his identity from his indulgences. A fool decorates his cage and calls it personality. The world applauds his balance, his good time. But balance is a lie when the scale is tilted by addiction. The sober man is feared because he is unreadable. The drunk man is loved because he is predictable. And in a world of manipulation, predictability is death. The sober man walks into a room and feels everything. He senses envy, deceit, attraction, hostility. He navigates the unseen like a general studying terrain. The drunk man walks into the same room and feels nothing. He is blind to betrayal, deaf to warning, and numb to intuition. Alcohol disconnects you from the currents of power flowing through human interaction. It strips you of the ability to read the battlefield. While you laugh and relax, the observant watch you reveal your weaknesses. You are not enjoying yourself, you are being studied, you are being measured. Your rivals smile because they know something you have forgotten, that the man who cannot master himself cannot master anyone. Imagine a general before battle, his soldiers restless, his fate uncertain. Now imagine him taking a drink before the march, to ease the nerves. Would you trust him with your life? Would you follow him into the storm? A man who dulls his fear instead of mastering it has already surrendered. Alcohol does not remove fear, it only blinds you to its message. Fear is not the enemy, it is information. It tells you what matters, where danger hides, what deserves your preparation. When you drink to escape it, you forfeit the very intelligence that survival demands. The sober man does not avoid fear, he listens to it, learns from it, and turns it into precision. The drunk man ignores it and walks into traps smiling. This is why empires fall not from invasion, but from indulgence. There is a reason why great strategists, conquerors, and thinkers treated alcohol as a tool, not a companion. They used it as a weapon against others, not themselves. They offered it at feasts to loosen tongues, to observe hidden motives, to test loyalties. They watched men drown their discretion in celebration and quietly took notes. To Machiavelli, weakness is not only visible, it is predictable. The man who must drink to feel free has already revealed where to strike. For once you know a man's indulgence, you know his price. That is why rulers never expose their vices in public. The moment you display what enslaves you, your enemy has found your leash. You see, alcohol is not merely poison for the body, it is poison for your myth. Every man of power cultivates a myth around himself. His silence becomes sacred, his composure becomes legend, but alcohol cracks that illusion. It turns mystery into noise, grace into clumsiness, control into chaos. The man who once commanded a room with a glance now stumbles through words and gestures. His myth evaporates, replaced by memory of his weakness. And people do not forget weakness. They pretend to forgive it, but it remains in their subconscious, reshaping their respect. They no longer see a lion, they see a man pretending to roar. The cost of that is immeasurable, because power, once humanized, is never feared the same way again. Consider the subtle cruelty of this exchange. The bottle promises relief from the pressure of maintaining power. It tells the weary man, take a break, you deserve it. But that break is a fracture. One moment of indulgence becomes a pattern of compromise. The drinker begins to say, just tonight, just this once, just to unwind. These are the whispers of decay disguised as reason. Every empire falls with those same words, just once. The destruction of self always begins with negotiation. And no man can negotiate with poison and win. It waits, it listens, it knows your weakness better than you do. If you wish to see the true danger of alcohol, look not at the drunk, but at the man who drinks occasionally, the man who tells himself he is in control. For him, alcohol is not addiction, it is insurance against emotion. He uses it to escape thought when thought becomes unbearable. He uses it to create illusion when reality becomes too clear. But when you train your mind to retreat at the first sign of discomfort, you weaken the muscle that rules the world, endurance. The sober mind endures its storms, the drunk mind hides from them, and a man who hides from storms will never command the sea. And that is how alcohol turns strength into softness. Quietly, invisibly, without resistance. It convinces men that softness is safety, that the edge of awareness is something to dull, not sharpen. But the truth is this, your edge is everything. It is what separates the disciplined from the distracted, the rulers from the ruled. Every sip dulls that edge a little more, until one day you cannot tell when you've been insulted, when you've been outmaneuvered, when you've been used. You start mistaking apathy for peace. You call your decline balance. You say you are enjoying life, not realizing life is enjoying you, devouring you slowly. Through pleasure you no longer question. The man who cannot sit alone in silence without seeking a drink has already admitted he is not in command of himself. He does not crave alcohol, he craves escape from his own reflection. And that, my friend, is the beginning of moral decay. Alcohol seduces you not with power, but with permission. It whispers, you've worked hard, you deserve this. That is its most dangerous lie. For power does not reward indulgence, it demands abstinence. The king who indulges too much in luxury forgets his hunger, and a king who forgets his hunger invites rebellion. The strategist must learn to love denial. There is strength in wanting and not giving in. There is dominance in saying no to yourself when every voice around you says yes. But when you drink, you reverse that dynamic. You reward yourself for existing, not for achieving. You trade the satisfaction of mastery for the convenience of momentary pleasure. And every time you yield to that convenience, you rewrite your character to expect reward without conquest. Slowly, you become your own enemy's apprentice. Think about the men who built civilizations, the generals, the poets, the inventors, the prophets. They all had one thing in common, a willingness to face reality without anesthesia. They endured the full intensity of existence, the boredom, the pain, the fear, the uncertainty, and in doing so, they discovered clarity. They didn't need to escape the human condition, they mastered it. But modern man, weak and overstimulated, cannot tolerate stillness. He runs from his thoughts as if they were assassins. He seeks relief in the bottle, not realizing that relief is the enemy of greatness. A mind that cannot handle discomfort will never handle destiny. Alcohol is not leisure, it is surrender disguised as sophistication. When you are sober, life is vivid. Every detail becomes intelligence. You notice the smallest changes in a person's tone, the faint hesitation before a lie, the flicker in their eyes when they are plotting. You see the hierarchy in every room, the hidden alliances, the quiet power plays. You move like a ghost through the battlefield, unseen but aware. That is what clarity gives you. But when you drink, you dim that vision. You dull the very senses that keep you alive in a world ruled by perception. The man who loses perception loses advantage, and when you lose advantage, you lose control. Alcohol convinces you that the night is yours, but in truth, the night belongs to those who stay awake. Every empire that fell did so under the illusion of safety. The walls stood tall, the guards were posted, the music played. Inside, the rulers drank to their own invincibility, blind to the cracks forming beneath their feet. Alcohol creates the same illusion within a man. He feels untouchable, relaxed, certain that everything is fine. That false certainty is lethal. It blinds him to the slow decay of his discipline, and discipline, once lost, is not easily rebuilt. It is the spine of power. Break it once, and the body collapses no matter how strong the arms appear. The bottle offers a moment of comfort, but extracts decades of potential. It promises ease, but demands submission. A sober man, in contrast, is feared. His restraint unsettles people. His control exposes their chaos. They call him boring, rigid, arrogant, because his existence reminds them of what they've lost. They will try to hand him a drink not to include him, but to dilute him. Misery seeks company, but weakness seeks permission. If you refuse the drink, you remind others of their lack of control, and so they resent you, not because you are wrong, but because you are free. Understand this. Sobriety is not merely abstaining from alcohol. It is declaring war on dependence itself. It is telling the world, you cannot seduce me with escape. That is the foundation of sovereignty. There is a silence that only the sober know, the silence of an untamed mind at peace with itself. In that silence, you begin to see the architecture of power. You understand that the world belongs not to the entertained, but to the disciplined. The drunk man wakes up asking for more comfort. The sober man wakes up seeking more control, and control is the purest form of pleasure there is. It is not loud or intoxicating, it is calm, deliberate, divine. The sober mind sees beauty in focus, ecstasy in composure, victory in restraint. That is the true intoxication, the clarity that no substance can replicate. The world fears a sober man because he cannot be bought, distracted, or deceived. He is dangerous precisely because he feels everything and still chooses command. The moment you take control of your desires, you take control of your life. And make no mistake, alcohol is a desire, one that robs you of control the moment you yield to it. You see, power does not lie in indulgence, it lies in your ability to resist it. The man who refuses the drink refuses not just alcohol, but the weakness it represents. The king who governs with restraint governs with dignity. The ruler who controls his impulses controls the world around him. There is a profound, almost mystical power in the ability to deny yourself. It is a power few men will ever know, because few are willing to embrace the struggle it demands. The drunk man surrenders to that struggle. He believes the fight against his own weakness is too much to bear. But the sober man knows something far more valuable, that every battle fought within and won builds a fortitude the world cannot destroy. Think of the greatest rulers of history, whether they were kings, emperors, or visionaries. What set them apart was not just their intellect or their ambition, but their ability to maintain an unbroken focus on their goals. They had the courage to say no to distractions, the discipline to say no to excess. While the world sought comfort, they sought conquest. While others indulged in fleeting pleasures, they endured the pains of greatness. They knew that in the quiet, sober moments, their minds were most alert, their wills most unshakable. The intoxicated mind may dream, but it cannot plan. It may hope, but it cannot achieve. The sober mind, however, is an instrument of action. It cuts through distractions, focuses on the target, and executes with precision. The greatest danger of alcohol is that it convinces you that you are in control when you are, in fact, at its mercy. A drunk man believes he has liberated himself from stress, from fear, from responsibility. But all he has truly done is lower the walls that keep him safe. His mind, once sharp and capable of deciphering every move in the game of life, now stumbles through shadows, chasing comfort and escaping reality. The world does not fear the man who drinks, it pities him. The world fears the man who stands resolute, who faces the harsh truth of his existence and rises above it. That man, who needs nothing to feel whole, who does not seek relief in the bottle, is a man who cannot be undermined. The drunk man may have a smile, but the sober man carries power. And this is why alcohol is not only a personal enemy, it is a societal one. Look at the world today. People drink to cope with their stress, to escape their lives, to numb the constant pressure. Society, in its unrelenting pursuit of distraction, celebrates these acts of surrender as normal. But nothing could be further from the truth. It is not normal to escape the burden of leadership, the weight of self-governance, the call of personal duty. Every time you reach for that drink, you are not embracing freedom, you are abandoning it. You are taking the path of least resistance, the way of the weak, the cowardly, and the world will reward you with precisely what you seek: more mediocrity, more comfort, and less power. The greatest men throughout history were not those who fled from reality. They were those who faced it head-on, unyielding. They embraced the struggle, the discomfort, the uncertainty, because they knew that it was only through these things that true power could be forged. It is only by enduring pain, by denying momentary pleasure, that a man learns to master himself. And the man who masters himself masters the world. This is why the greatest leaders, whether in politics, business, or war, have all practiced restraint. They understood that indulgence is the enemy of greatness. To surrender to temptation is to surrender to mediocrity. And mediocrity, my friend, is the death of power. You may argue that life is short, that we should savor the moments we have, but in truth, those who embrace fleeting pleasures are the ones who waste their time. Because every indulgence takes you further from your ultimate goal. You think you are enjoying life, but in reality, you are giving it away piece by piece. You trade your time, your clarity, your power for a momentary illusion of comfort. And in doing so, you lose your capacity to achieve anything of true value. Power is not found in indulgence. It is found in the mastery of your impulses. It is found in the quiet moments, the sober decisions, the strategic choices made when no one is watching. The drinker lives for the present, and the present is all he will ever have. The master lives for the future, and the future belongs to him. In the end, alcohol is not the problem. The problem lies in the way it deceives you into thinking you are doing something noble when you are doing nothing at all. It tells you that you deserve a break, that you have worked hard, that you need it to relax. But the greatest work, the most rewarding work, comes not when you are relaxed, but when you are focused, when you are hungry for progress, when you are in relentless pursuit of your purpose. And this is where the power of restraint lies, in the ability to see beyond the momentary and focus on the horizon. The man who drinks loses sight of the horizon. The man who stays sober sees it clearly, and it is to him the world will bend. Alcohol blinds you to the future because it binds you to the present. It anchors you to the lowest form of existence, one that seeks only sensation, not meaning. The man who drinks no longer strategizes. He reacts. He lives from impulse to impulse, chasing the fleeting thrill of relief, never realizing that relief is the most expensive currency in the world. You pay for it with your potential. You pay for it with your destiny. The sober man suffers, yes, but his suffering is investment. Every moment of discomfort sharpens him, disciplines him, forges him into someone who cannot be swayed by weakness. But the drunk man, he spends his strength avoiding that very fire, and in doing so ensures he never becomes anything more than a man who once could have been. Alcohol is the thief that robs you in installments, smiling as it takes everything that made you dangerous. There is an ancient truth most men ignore. The measure of your strength is determined by what you can refuse. The world tests you not with hardship, but with temptation. And alcohol is temptation in liquid form. The whisper that says, just tonight, you've earned it. No one will know. But every time you obey that whisper, it grows stronger. It begins to shape your identity, your self-image, your habits. You stop seeing yourself as the predator and start living as the prey to impulse, to culture, to the need to fit in. That is the tragedy of modern man. He mistakes conformity for connection. He confuses self-betrayal with self-expression. The drunk man believes he is socializing, but in truth, he is dissolving. His edges blur, his convictions soften, his essence evaporates into the noise. A man without edges cannot cut through the world. He is not a blade, he is dull metal, harmless to all but himself. To remain sober in a culture of indulgence is to declare war. You are not simply refusing a drink, you are refusing the system that profits from your weakness. Entire industries exist to keep you sedated, to make you believe that numbness is joy. They need you tired, distracted, dependent, because a man who is awake cannot be controlled. A sober mind sees through the illusion, the ads, the celebrations, the work hard, play hard poison that keeps the masses complacent. And when you see it, truly see it, you begin to understand why the world mocks discipline, why it calls temperance boring and excess fun. It's because the world does not reward strength, it rewards surrender. The man who stands apart threatens the entire illusion. That is why sobriety, in a drunk world, is rebellion. And rebellion is lonely. You will lose friends when you stop drinking. Not because they hate you, but because your clarity exposes their fog. They will laugh, they will tempt, they will tell you you've changed, and you've become what they fear, untouchable. Their discomfort is not about your choices, it's about what your choices reveal. Most people do not drink because they enjoy it. They drink to silence the small voice that tells them they are wasting their lives. Alcohol is not their friend, it's their confession. And every time you refuse to join them, you force them to confront what they've been running from. That's why your sobriety feels like arrogance to them, because it reminds them that strength was always a choice. Understand this. The path of power is narrow, and it is lonely, but it is also the only one that leads to sovereignty. You cannot command men if you cannot command yourself. You cannot expect loyalty from others when you betray your own principles. A drunk man cannot lead, he can only follow. He follows the next thrill, the next excuse, the next drink, but the sober man, the one who walks through chaos untouched, he commands attention without trying. His eyes are steady, his words deliberate, his presence unsettling. People cannot explain it, but they feel it. It is the aura of self-governance, the energy of a man who is owned by nothing. You cannot buy that kind of power. You can only earn it, sip by sip, temptation by temptation, refusal by refusal. Alcohol is the great equalizer of men. It makes the strong weak, the sharp dull, the ambitious lazy. It strips away hierarchy until everyone in the room is equally useless. It promises connection but delivers chaos. It promises confidence but creates dependence. And dependence is the silent executioner of destiny. For how can you rule your world when you cannot even rule your appetite? Every drink you take sends a signal to your subconscious that comfort is more important than control. Repeat that enough times and you will live it. You will start compromising in other ways, in your goals, in your relationships, in your discipline. You will drink not just with your mouth, but with your time, your energy, your attention. The bottle will be empty, but you will keep pouring, your focus, your will, your future, until there is nothing left. If you want to know the true cost of alcohol, do not look at the drunk in the gutter. Look at the man who could have been great, the one who almost made it, who had the vision, the talent, the fire, but traded it for nights he can't even remember. That is the tragedy. Alcohol does not destroy men immediately. It erodes them quietly. It doesn't kill potential in a blaze of ruin. It smothers it in laughter, in toasts, in the illusion of belonging. And the saddest part, the man never realizes when it happened. He wakes up one morning with a soft body, a dull mind, and a spirit that no longer hungers. He tells himself he's grown up, but he hasn't matured, he's merely settled. And in settling, he has died standing up. There is a terrifying truth most men will never face. Alcohol does not simply dull your mind, it rewrites it. With each drink, it teaches your brain that avoidance is wisdom, that comfort is victory, that escape is survival. And soon, even when you are sober, those lessons remain. You begin to live as if the world owes you ease. You stop seeking challenge, stop chasing mastery, and start organizing your life around the avoidance of pain. That is how alcohol wins, by turning lions into sheep long after the bottle is gone. You think you are recovering. In truth, you are still obeying the rhythm it carved into your mind. The addiction is no longer chemical, it is psychological. It has made you forget that struggle is sacred, that discomfort is the forge of greatness, that pain, when endured with clarity, purifies the soul. The sober man sees pain as a teacher. The drunk man sees it as an enemy. And this difference determines everything. The man who welcomes pain becomes unbreakable because he no longer fears it. He sharpens himself against the grindstone of life, forging his identity in the heat of discomfort. But the man who avoids pain becomes fragile. His confidence depends on circumstances, on substances, on external validation. He cannot sit alone with his thoughts without needing a distraction. That is the greatest poverty a man can suffer. Not the lack of money, but the lack of command over his own mind. Alcohol promises escape, but in truth, it is a return to slavery. It binds you not with chains of iron, but with chains of comfort. And comfort is the most dangerous prison because it feels like freedom. Ask yourself this: who profits from your weakness? The bar owner, the corporation, the system, they all do. They sell you poison and call it celebration. They market decay as leisure. They have learned what tyrants always knew, that a distracted man will never revolt. If you want to control a population, you don't need soldiers, you need bartenders. You don't need violence, you need pleasure. Give men just enough comfort to dull their ambition, and they will police themselves. Alcohol is the perfect tool for that. It keeps you docile, it keeps you agreeable, it keeps you believing that the slow destruction of your potential is a lifestyle. They will never warn you about this, because the drunk man is the easiest to rule. He has no clarity, no memory, no rebellion left in him. He is the citizen every system dreams of, obedient, numb, and blind. And yet the sober man, he is the one they cannot predict. He is the variable the system fears. For a sober mind is a dangerous mind. It sees manipulation where others see entertainment. It detects propaganda in celebration. It hears the whispers of control behind every advertisement that says you deserve to relax. He does not need to numb himself, because he understands that stillness and silence are his allies. He uses them to plan, to reflect, to grow sharper. He does not seek distraction because he has already chosen his obsession. And that obsession, whether empire, art, mastery, or self-conquest, is what makes him untouchable. You cannot enslave a man who needs nothing. And that precisely is why society mocks sobriety, because it threatens every system built on dependency. Do you know what alcohol really destroys? Time. It steals it quietly, drop by drop. You lose not just hours, but entire chapters of your life. The morning after becomes a ritual of regret, the day a blur, the week a repetition. You promise yourself control, but control fades the moment temptation returns. And time, once spent, cannot be reclaimed. Every hour you spend intoxicated is an hour your enemies use to advance. While you sleep off your escape, they are building, scheming, ascending. The man who drinks believes he is living fully, but he is merely consuming moments. The sober man, however, multiplies them. He stretches time through awareness, through intentionality, through mastery. That is the great irony. The drunk thinks he's escaping reality, while the sober man learns to bend it. To live sober is to live awake. It is to see the machinery of the world turning, to recognize the silent forces shaping men's destinies. It is not always pleasant. Awareness never is, but it is real. And reality, no matter how harsh, is the only ground upon which empires are built. The drunk man builds castles in the air and wonders why they collapse. The sober man lays stone upon stone, patiently, relentlessly, until one day his fortress stands unshakable. There is no glory in intoxication, only escape. There is no honor in avoidance, only delay, and delay is death. Every time you drink, you postpone your ascension. You tell the world, I will not rise today. You trade destiny for distraction, legacy for laughter, sovereignty for sedation. The cruelest part is that alcohol doesn't simply destroy you. It convinces you to destroy yourself willingly. It wraps poison in beauty. It makes you raise your own glass to your downfall. It teaches you to smile while you fade. That is the tragedy of modern man. He drinks to feel alive, not realizing he is celebrating his own decay. But you, if you can see through it, if you can endure the solitude of sobriety, you will walk among ghosts. You will see what others cannot see. You will act while others sleep. And one day, when the world finally wakes, they will call you lucky. But luck has nothing to do with it. It will be the result of one decision made long ago, to stay awake while everyone else was dreaming. And in staying awake, you will begin to see the pattern. Every fallen man believed he was the exception. Every ruined genius thought one drink would not matter. Every collapsed empire began not with betrayal from others, but betrayal of self. The first compromise always seems harmless. It is never the final blow that destroys a man. It is the series of small permissions he grants himself along the way. I deserve this. I'll stop tomorrow. It's just one night. These are not words of freedom. They are confessions of surrender. Alcohol teaches you to negotiate with your weakness until your weakness becomes your ruler. And once that happens, no crown, no title, no brilliance can save you. The man who cannot say no to himself will eventually hear the world say no to him. You see, power demands sacrifice. Every throne is built on denial of comfort, of impulse, of easy pleasure. The man who drinks has already chosen which god he serves, and it is not discipline. Alcohol does not merely dull the mind, it inverts your hierarchy. It makes pleasure your master and purpose your servant. What begins as a celebration ends as servitude, and it happens quietly, politely, behind smiles and music and laughter. Society will call it enjoyment. Friends will call it bonding. But every toast is a pact you make with mediocrity. Each glass raised is a small surrender to inertia. You may not notice it in a night or a year, but over time, those surrenders pile up into the grave of potential. You will never know how much greatness was lost because you were too intoxicated to realize you were meant for more. The sober man understands that clarity is not just a virtue, it is a weapon. It cuts through illusion. It reveals motives. It allows you to move like a ghost through a world clouded by distraction. When others argue, he observes. When others celebrate, he plans. When others numb themselves, he learns. That is why the sober man ascends while the drunk man repeats. One evolves, the other revolves. It is not about morality, it is about efficiency. You cannot optimize a life you cannot see, and alcohol blinds you, not in one stroke, but through the slow fog of habit. Every drink lowers the resolution of your perception until you live in a blur, reacting instead of ruling. A dull mind cannot see opportunities. A fogged will cannot seize them, and a numb conscience cannot feel the moment when it begins to rot. There is a reason the wolf does not drink. A predator must stay alert. His power lies in his awareness. The deer drinks freely from the stream, unaware of the eyes watching from the shadows. The wolf waits, the deer relaxes, and in that single moment of indulgence, the hierarchy of nature decides its outcome. The same is true for men. The hunter remains sober, the hunted drinks to feel safe. Alcohol gives you the illusion that no danger exists, but danger does not vanish when you stop seeing it. It grows, it circles, it waits for your next night of celebration. Power is not about domination, it is about perception. To lose perception is to lose your place in the order of nature, and the man who loses his place is devoured by those who never stopped watching. You may think this metaphor exaggerated, but look closely around you. How many men have fallen because they mistook drunken laughter for loyalty? How many secrets have been spilled under the warmth of intoxication? How many empires have collapsed because one leader, one general, one strategist decided to dull his edge? History does not remember their excuses. It only remembers their ruin. Alcohol is not merely a personal weakness, it is a liability. Every enemy knows this. The best way to destroy a strong man is not to confront him, it is to convince him to destroy himself. Give him indulgence, not resistance. Give him pleasure, not pain. Give him ease, not effort. Soon he will no longer need your manipulation. He will do your work for you. The sober mind, on the other hand, is like a fortress with no open gates. It cannot be infiltrated because it is aware of every weakness and guards it with precision. Sobriety is not mere abstinence. It is vigilance. It is the constant awareness that you are surrounded by forces trying to dull you, distract you, and domesticate you. To be sober is to declare that you will not be domesticated, that you will remain wild, unpredictable, untamed. You will feel every discomfort, endure every temptation, and remain unbroken. That is what separates a man of power from a man of pleasure. The former endures the full weight of consciousness, the latter runs from it. The drinker escapes his own mind, the sober man explores it. He studies his fears until they lose their teeth. He dissects his emotions until they serve him. He treats solitude not as punishment, but as a counsel with himself. And that is where true evolution begins, in the solitude that alcohol seeks to erase. A drunk man fills silence with noise, because silence would reveal his emptiness. A sober man fills silence with creation. While the drunk man runs from himself, the sober man builds himself. And every act of self-building is an act of rebellion against decay. That is why the world cannot understand him. He seems distant, detached, inhuman. But that distance is not arrogance, it is altitude. He has risen above what enslaves others. So let them call you cold. Let them call you rigid. Let them call you obsessed. They mock what they envy. The truth is, they wish they had your discipline, your control, your refusal to bow to comfort. They wish they could feel what you feel, the clarity, the power, the unshakable peace of knowing nothing external holds sway over you. That is the real intoxication, the silence of total self-command. It does not need music, or lights, or applause. It needs only the sound of your own breath, steady and deliberate, while the world around you collapses in noise. The world will always try to pull you back into its noise. It cannot tolerate the man who stands apart, because his composure exposes its chaos. When you refuse the drink, you are not simply rejecting alcohol, you are rejecting the collective ritual of weakness. You are refusing to participate in the slow suicide that society calls celebration. People will tell you that you are missing out, but they do not realize that what they call joy is dependency dressed in gold. They drink because they must, not because they choose. Their laughter is forced, their smiles rehearsed, their energy borrowed. And when the music fades and the bottle empties, they are left with the one thing they cannot escape themselves. Alcohol delays that encounter, sobriety demands it. And that is why the sober man grows while the rest merely repeat. You must understand that every act of restraint is an act of creation. Each temptation you refuse forges something within you: clarity, focus, resilience. These are the metals from which power is cast. The man who abstains builds invisible muscles of command. He becomes the kind of person who does not need to chase pleasure, because pleasure comes to him. People can sense it. There is a gravity in his stillness, a calm that draws others without effort. The drunk man tries to be interesting. The sober man becomes magnetic. That is the difference between performance and presence. Alcohol gives you performance, a loud, temporary glow that dies with the night. Sobriety gives you presence, the silent authority that remains when the lights are gone. The true power of sobriety is that it exposes everything false. When you are sober, you begin to see how shallow most human interactions are. The jokes, the celebrations, the rituals of escape, they all reveal the same truth. People are terrified of awareness. They do not fear death, they fear consciousness. To feel fully alive, to think deeply, to face the mirror of truth, these are unbearable for those who have not built the strength to endure themselves. And so they drink, not for joy, but for amnesia. Alcohol is a cultural anesthesia. It keeps people functional enough to work, but numb enough not to question why. But the sober man asks why. He asks what this all means. He sees the world's games for what they are, distractions for those who have no vision. And in seeing that, he steps out of the illusion entirely. It is no coincidence that every spiritual awakening, every transformation, every act of mastery begins with renunciation. Whether it is the monk in his monastery, the warrior before battle, or the philosopher in solitude, all must first empty themselves of dependency. You cannot hear the voice of wisdom while the echoes of indulgence still fill your mind. Alcohol, even in small doses, interrupts that signal. It fogs your intuition, blurs your instincts, dulls your discernment. The sober man is not simply more aware, he is tuned to a higher frequency of existence. His thoughts are sharper, his emotions cleaner, his perception precise. He begins to move through life with a quiet omniscience, seeing consequences before they unfold. That is why he seems detached, because he no longer reacts. He acts with foresight. He becomes a strategist, not a participant. To live this way demands courage, for sobriety will strip you of illusion. It will force you to confront everything you have avoided, the emptiness, the fear, the longing, the unfulfilled dreams. There is nowhere to hide, no distraction to drown in. But it is in that exposure that transformation begins. When you face yourself fully, without the crutch of intoxication, you begin to reclaim your dominion. The man who can sit in silence, feel every wound, every regret, and still remain unmoved, that is a man who can move mountains. Sobriety gives you that unshakable spine. It teaches you that control is not repression, it is freedom. To choose not to indulge is the highest form of power, because it means you have transcended the body's demands. You are no longer a servant to impulse. You are a ruler of self. And this is where the drunk and the sober finally diverge beyond repair. The drunk man ages into regret. the sober man matures into command. One decays, the other refines. Alcohol makes time your enemy. Sobriety makes time your ally. Every sober year compounds, like interest on mastery. The world sees your calm and mistakes it for coldness. But it is not cold, it is controlled fire. You burn inwardly, in silence, directing your energy with precision. The drunk burns outwardly, wasting his fire on noise and chaos. One builds an empire, the other builds excuses. One looks ahead with vision, the other looks back with nostalgia. And in the end, when all distractions have faded, the sober man stands alone, but he stands tall. His clarity is his crown, his restraint, his throne. You will not be understood, but that is the cost of elevation. You will not be praised, because your existence threatens those addicted to weakness. But understand this, history never remembers the drunkards. It remembers the disciplined. It does not build statues for those who escaped life. It builds them for those who faced it. Every man must choose his monument, a moment of pleasure or a lifetime of power. Alcohol offers the first, discipline guarantees the second. And if you must sacrifice one to gain the other, the choice should not take you long. For in the end, a single hour of clear thought is worth more than a lifetime of drunken dreams. And when that clarity finally takes root within you, something irreversible happens. The world begins to slow down. The chaos, the noise, the distractions that once pulled at your attention lose their power. You start seeing every movement, every motive, every manipulation with terrifying precision. Sobriety gives you vision, not just of others, but of yourself. You begin to notice the smallest fracture in your thoughts, the slightest corruption in your intent, and you correct it before it grows. That is the discipline alcohol steals. The drunk man drifts through life unaware of his own decay. The sober man audits himself daily. He does not need to be told where he is failing, because his clarity reveals it to him. He adjusts, sharpens, ascends, and that process, constant self-awareness, unflinching correction, is how kings are made in a world of sleepers. Alcohol destroys that mirror. It blurs your reflection until you no longer recognize the man staring back at you. At first, you lose awareness of the details, your fatigue, your anger, your emptiness. Then you lose the larger picture, your purpose, your principles, your path, and eventually, you stop asking who you are altogether. That is how most men die long before their time, not through violence or tragedy, but through gradual erosion. They die not of alcohol, but of avoidance. They drink to avoid confronting how far they've drifted from their true potential. They pretend to celebrate life while quietly mourning what they could have been. The glass in their hand is not a toast. It's a tombstone, raised nightly to the version of themselves they abandoned. Sobriety resurrects that version. It drags the real you out of the grave you dug with indulgence. And the rebirth is painful, because awakening always is. You will feel everything you buried. You will grieve the years you wasted, the people you let down, the potential you betrayed. But that grief is sacred. It is proof that your soul has reawakened. The man who feels regret is not weak, he is alive. Only the numb feel nothing. And from that pain will emerge a purity that alcohol could never replicate. The quiet, solemn determination to never again betray yourself. The sober man does not seek revenge on the world. He seeks redemption through mastery. He builds, he refines, he evolves. Every day becomes a ritual of reclamation. Every act of discipline becomes a prayer to the man he was meant to be. In that state, temptation will still come, but it will come differently. You will not see it as pleasure anymore. You will see it as the enemy wearing a mask. The glass offered to you at a celebration will look less like an invitation and more like a test. The laughter around you will sound hollow. You will recognize that the drink is not being offered to make you free. It is being offered to make you predictable. And that realization will ignite something deeper than willpower, disgust. You will begin to see what alcohol truly is, a parasite that disguises itself as joy. You will no longer crave it, because you will see the cost behind its smile. That is the final stage of sobriety, not resistance but revulsion. The day will come when the idea of dulling your mind feels like blasphemy. You will defend your clarity as a warrior defends his kingdom. But even more profound than clarity is what comes after it. Peace. The drunk man chases peace through oblivion. The sober man finds peace through mastery. They both seek silence, but only one earns it. The silence of intoxication is empty. a void filled with forgetfulness. The silence of discipline, however, hums with power. It is the stillness before the strike, the calm of a mind so strong it no longer trembles. That kind of peace cannot be bought or borrowed. It must be built. It must be forged in countless moments of restraint. When others pour another drink, you pour another hour into your craft, your mission, your purpose. And as they sleep through their escapes, you awaken layer by layer, rising beyond their reach. When you live like this long enough, people begin to feel something around you that they cannot explain. They will not call it sobriety. They will call it presence. You will walk into a room and the air will shift. The loud will become quiet. The restless will become still. They will not understand why, but they will feel it. The weight of a man who needs nothing. That is the rarest energy in existence, the energy of someone who has mastered himself. Alcohol promises power, but delivers dependence. Sobriety delivers power, but demands sacrifice. That is why so few achieve it, and why those who do become myth. Their words carry weight, their gaze cuts through deception, their silence commands respect. They are no longer merely men, they are forces of nature. And in time, you will realize the cruelest truth of all. The world does not want you sober, because a sober man cannot be controlled. He cannot be manipulated by pleasure or enslaved by fear. He sees too much. He moves too strategically. He thinks too clearly. He is immune to the games that keep others busy. The rulers of the world understand this well. They know that keeping men numb keeps them obedient. But you, once awakened, cannot return to sleep. You will move through their illusions as if through smoke, untouched and untempted. The drink will be offered again and again, but each time you will see it for what it is, a contract. One signature, one sip, and your freedom begins to fade. You will smile, decline, and walk away, and in that moment of refusal, you will taste something stronger than any liquor sovereignty. For that is what sobriety truly grants you. Not just health, not just clarity, but dominion over your own existence. You will no longer beg the world for peace, because you will have built it within. You will no longer chase happiness, because you will have replaced it with purpose. And the greatest irony of all, the very stillness you once tried to escape becomes the place you find power. You will look back on the man who drank to feel alive and pity him, because you will finally understand he was not living, he was dying in slow motion. The sober man does not merely survive life, he conquers it. And when you finally conquer life, when your mind becomes so clear that even your thoughts move like soldiers obeying your command, you will understand why the world fears sobriety. A sober man cannot be persuaded by chaos. He is immune to false urgency, to emotional manipulation, to the soft lies of pleasure. He sees through them all with surgical precision. His calm is not apathy, it is supremacy. He no longer reacts, he dictates. And that is what alcohol was designed to destroy, your sovereignty over yourself. For the man who governs his impulses, who stands unshaken before temptation, becomes untouchable. He is no longer moved by the winds of weakness or the storms of emotion. He becomes what every empire secretly dreads, a man who cannot be controlled. This is why sobriety is not simply abstinence, it is rebellion. It is the refusal to be conquered by pleasure, by habit, by the invisible strings that guide lesser men. The sober man walks through a drunk world as if through a battlefield of illusions. He hears the laughter of the lost, the cheers of the content, the cries of the numb, and he does not flinch. His purpose shields him, his focus becomes armor. He no longer needs validation, entertainment, or escape. The silence that others flee from has become his throne room. The stillness that terrifies the masses is where he draws his strength. He has found the truth hidden in plain sight, that the absence of intoxication is not deprivation, it is divine power. Every sober breath is a reminder that he owns himself completely. You must understand, the world will tempt you until your last breath. It will not stop, because you have declared your allegiance to clarity. The forces that profit from your numbness do not sleep. They will come disguised as friendship, as celebration, as reward. They will whisper, just one drink. But that one drink is never one. It is the doorway back to mediocrity, back to dependence, back to the smallness you outgrew. Do not open it. Let others call you extreme. Let them say you are obsessed. They do not understand that the only men who change the world are those who are willing to be misunderstood. You are not here to fit in with the broken. You are here to remind them what wholeness looks like. The world needs examples, not echoes. And every time you refuse the drink, you become that example. In time, you will see how deeply alcohol has shaped the weakness of modern men. You will watch them drown ambition in laughter, bury pain in intoxication, and call it balance. They will work all week to build an empire, then destroy it on the weekend. They will beg for success while worshipping the very habits that sabotage it. They will post quotes about power while poisoning the mind that could create it. And yet they will look at you, the one who refuses, and call you arrogant. Let them, for their insults are confessions. They are admitting in disguise that your restraint exposes their lack of it. A drunk man cannot comprehend a sober man, just as the blind cannot comprehend light. But you who have seen the truth owe it to yourself to never return to blindness. You must remember, the discipline that sobriety gives you is not merely personal, it is generational. When you break free from the cycle of intoxication, you are not just saving yourself, you are rewriting the destiny of those who come after you. Your children will inherit not your habits, but your strength. They will grow up in the presence of a man who does not escape life but confronts it. They will see what self-command looks like. They will learn that to be strong is not to dominate others, but to dominate self. That is how legacies are built, not in moments of indulgence, but in years of restraint. Every sober night is a brick laid in the foundation of your family's empire. Every refusal to escape is an act of inheritance. The drunk man leaves behind memories, the sober man leaves behind monuments. There will come a day when you look back and realize that sobriety was not the loss of anything, it was the recovery of everything. Your energy, your discipline, your creativity, your spirit, all return to you in abundance. You begin to create more, love deeper, think sharper. You rediscover what it means to be alive without distortion. You will feel every emotion more vividly, pain included. But even pain becomes beautiful when it no longer controls you. For you will have learned that control is not about suppressing emotion, but about mastering response. That is the ultimate state of power, to remain calm when the world trembles, to remain pure when the world decays. That level of strength cannot be bought, taught, or faked. It must be earned through the silence of sobriety. So when they hand you a drink, do not see a glass, see a decision. You are not refusing alcohol, you are refusing mediocrity, dependency, distraction. You are choosing mastery over madness. You are choosing to rule your world rather than drown in it. Remember this, the man who can face himself without escape is the man who becomes the architect of reality. He sees through the illusions, he plays the game with precision, and he wins, not by chance but by clarity. You do not need intoxication to feel alive. You need purpose, discipline, and truth. That is the fire that never fades. The man who can stay sober in a world addicted to distraction does not live among men, he reigns above them. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you already knows this truth. Alcohol is not escape, it's surrender. It dulls the mind, weakens the will, and disguises decay as pleasure. Every sip is a small betrayal of your potential. Now tell me in the comments, are you ready to see through the illusion? To choose power over numbness, clarity over comfort? Are you willing to be hated for your discipline in a world addicted to weakness? If this message touched you, if it made sense, write in the comments, I choose clarity. Let's see how many here are truly ready to stay awake while others drown themselves to sleep. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. It's important, much more than you imagine. See you there.